I am fully invested in my client's success. The only way I measure success is not in dollars and cents. It's in how successful they are. And I build solutions to where they are, not to where I am. You can never be either as smart as or smarter than your client. They will tell you what their challenges are and what solutions they are. And if you do an effective job of asking questions and building trusting relationships, you're going to be in business for the long term.
Thank you, everyone, for joining me for another episode of our podcast. Whether you are watching on YouTube or you are listening to anywhere that you can listen to a podcast, I am so grateful that everyone is here. And I am grateful for our very, very special guest today, Dan Varroney. I have been anticipating this interview for the longest time, ever since like we had our first conversation, and then just trying to make this happen with schedules and everything. But I am super excited to have him here. I was super excited to have him here before, but now with everything that we are navigating in the world, in our country, and just what small business owners are going through, I'm even more excited to have him on here. So thank you for joining me, Dan.
It's a pleasure, and I'm happy to be here with you and look forward to this conversation.
Yeah, it's gonna be good. And I'm gonna tell you, some of the stuff that I'm gonna talk about, I was like, because I have a deep understanding about, the economy and business and everything, but you go way further than me. So I'm like, whoa, this is a little out of my comfort zone. So I'm stretching, but I'm excited for this. So I met Dan. We have a mutual friend, Meredith, and she introduced me to him, and we connected on LinkedIn. And I got to tell you, the first time I ever had a conversation with him, like I was like blown away. I had pages of notes and like just so much information and so much like just insights and ideas that came out of it. But I think, and for everybody that's listening and watching, you're going to see this with him. His heart is so big. His heart is so big, his empathy, his kindness, and it just comes through with when he's speaking. He not only is a CEO of his company, Potomac Core. I almost called it Potomac Care. I can't read my writing. Potomac Core. He is a business strategist. He is an economist. He has lived like so many different lives. And he's just an amazing human being and a very wise human being. And he has a way of taking complex, and you said this right before I hit the record button, but taking these complex, for a lot of people, like, because a lot of people, when we talk about the economy, we talk about numbers, we talk about finance. I know a lot of people are like, oh, that, like, I don't understand it, so I'm just gonna, stick my head in the sand. But he has a way of breaking it down so that everyone can understand it, and not only understand it, but use it to help them and to benefit them and to build better strategies and ultimately build a better business. So Dan, tell us a little bit about your background and how you got started doing what you're doing.
Sure. I'm an economic strategist. In terms of how I got started, I have been blessed with a remarkable career. I spent 3 decades as a trade association executive, first with National Association of Manufacturers for over 2 decades. And what was great about that is I got to learn about most of manufacturing on a sector by sector basis. I met with small, medium, and large firms over the years, got to know the insides of their businesses and their production lines and their challenges, both domestically and globally. And honestly, had I not had that experience, I'm not sure I'd be doing what I'm doing today. And I learned so much. And my former CEO was an economist, and he got me interested in economic data and economic trends. When I first went to work for the NAM, he was chief economist, and I'd be getting his newsletters and information every week. And I started buying the Wall Street Journal daily, and I was fully indoctrinated in economic trends. And Jerry Jasanowski was a great teacher on the economy. From there, I went to work as president and CEO of Association for Corporate Growth in Chicago. And essentially what they are is they are the deal makers, the private equity leaders, the investment bankers, and the corporate development executives. Did that for 2.5 years. And then I was offered a role by former House Speaker Newt Gingrich to come to Washington, D.C. and run his American Solutions Policy and Advocacy Organization. And I did that for 2.5 years. But the work that we did was absolutely fascinating. Fascinating in that it was all about small business and what moves and drives small business and how small business moves the needle for the U.S. economy on a consistent basis. When I went to work for Newt, the U.S. was just starting to come out of the Great Recession. And the first thing that Newt and I did after just a couple of days is he and I wrote a tax plan for small business. After that, we traveled around the country and met with thousands of small business owners. He and I wrote 11 op-ed articles together, and he invited me to write a chapter in one of his best-selling, New York Times best-selling books, which was just a great experience. After I left Newt, I was an acting or interim CEO at a technology trade association for a while. And I finally did what I didn't realize I wanted to do, which was to own and drive my own business. I never realized that I was an entrepreneur at heart, that I was a big idea person, and I was a risk taker. And my wife, who I call my princess, helped me see that. She thought it'd be good for me to open a consultancy, and she said I should probably write books. I told her she was outside her mind, and that was 15 years ago. So that's a very successful consulting practice. And two books later, my princess was absolutely correct. So here I am. Now, on top of all that, I have been politically active since I was 11 years old. I was always fascinated by politics. I knocked on doors, handed out pamphlets, and when we moved to Northwest New Jersey, I got even more active and helped a lot of local candidates. I helped someone get elected to Congress. I was at the Republican National Convention when I was 15, and which was fascinating. And then decided to come to college here in Washington, D.C., which was also a marvelous experience for me because I learned even more. And I think for me, it's about policy, it's about the economy, and what drives the economy on a consistent basis. And it's all about policy and the policy environment. But if our economy is to grow, small business must lead it, because I believe in a $30 trillion economy, if we want to grow consistently, especially at 3%, we need the companies that comprise 99.9% of this economy driving that.
You and I, and this was something when Meredith first told me about you, she was like, you have to talk to this guy, because I have a passion about small businesses.
Sure.
And I've been saying it. I mean, I owned a small business on a main street. I actually own two. And I work with small business owners, Main Street business owners every day. And I have this passion about making sure that they not just survive, but thrive, because they are the backbone of the economy. And, tell us a little bit more about, your feeling about them being the backbone and how they are. Like, what is it that makes them the backbone of the economy? I know you've talked about it. I've seen it in some of your content. So tell us a little bit more about that.
So what the data tells us is that 2 of 3 new private sector jobs created come from small businesses. Mm-hmm. So in other words, if we're looking to grow employment, it's going to start with small business. And that's a key data point. Half the U.S. workforce comes from small business. And when you look at those 2 data points in and of themselves, combined with 99.9% of the companies are small businesses. And by the way, on average, Small businesses employ 8 people. Small business is 45% of the US economy. And that's a very powerful number. So when we talk about how the economy can grow on a sustained basis, it will come from small business. But what I learned in writing my book, I did 50 hours of interviews. Most of those interviews were with 35 small business owners.
Yeah.
And what they told me and what they taught me is that they work and live in a policy environment that's not conducive to small business. So examples of what I mean by that is that the regulatory framework, the regulations they have to comply with are very expensive, right? They're designed for large companies who've got the resources to comply with them. Small businesses don't have those resources. We don't have a regulatory structure that's scale for small business. Honestly, it's scale for big business, not
Mm-hmm.
small business. So small businesses, instead of working on the business, end up working in the business in large part to these regulatory compliance challenges. In addition to that, what I learned is that they care a lot about certainty, not only in the regulatory structure, but in tax policy. They want to know if they should invest and if that investment will have a strong ROI, and that can only happen if they know they have certainty. And all that I spoke with were energized with the president's big, beautiful law and the 100% expensing for plants and equipment. They were absolutely energized by that. And many of them had either started along the lines of investing in plants and equipment or had planned on moving forward with it. So that was something that was very energizing for them. The other thing is I heard a lot about talent and their need to attract talent. But, here's what's interesting for me. What I learned is that small business owners are, my gosh, they're innovators and they think on their feet. So
They do.
give you an example of what I mean. And this is one of my favorite examples. This small business owner, who's a tooling and machining manufacturer in the greater Cleveland area, he and the other tooling and machining companies in that area said, we need a plan B. So what they did is they put together a plan that they utilized to approach the state's attorney and said, if you release the nonviolent felons, we will train them in our businesses and we will give them jobs. And they did that, and that addressed their workforce shortage challenge. And you know what else it did? It seriously reduced the recidivism rate, so there wasn't repeat offenders.
Sure.
And that's just impressive. Another example is a small company in Alabama. What she did is she built a relationship with the community colleges and technical schools in her area, and she utilizes those relationship as an opportunity to get a feeder of new workers into her company. There's another company in South Carolina. They have built similar relationships, but what they're doing is they're making suggestions for curriculum for technical and vocational schools, and they're doing it around programs that will help bring them workers. And they've created a pipeline of workers for themselves. Small business owners know how to get it done. The other thing I'll say related to small businesses is that they build communities within communities.
They do.
They're very effective at networking and connecting with one another. And whatever the challenges are, they figure it out together. And they are part of the foundation, the rubric of every community around this country.
So I've noticed, and I know you have worked with trade industries specifically. Is there something about that industry, for small businesses that you've always, worked with, or is it like I work with restaurants and retail stores?
Right.
So
So
you
mean
do
like
a lot of work with with trade.
manufacturers? Yeah.
Yes.
So I've spent 23 years with manufacturers.
Yeah.
It honestly gets into your bloodstream. It becomes part of your DNA.
Yeah.
And manufacturers are very easy to talk to. So in my consulting practice, in 14 years, I've interviewed almost 2,500 executives, most of them small businesses, most of them in manufacturing, and it's just been a remarkable experience. So it's a carryover in large part to what I did when I worked for the National Association of Manufacturers.
Gotcha.
Manufacturers are very unique. They've got an outcome based mentality. They know what they want to do. They know how to identify and analyze problems and come up with solutions that will yield strong results. And I just love working with manufacturers. So when I work with trade associations, probably 99.9% of the clients I've worked with are manufacturing related trade associations.
Yeah.
Their members make manufactured products. It's just a great experience.
Hmm. Yeah, my father, I know this is something about bringing, my father used to work at a company, a very large company,
Yeah,
and he ran the,
sure.
where they purified water. They
Yes,
purified the water so
sure.
that they could take the silicone and then make computer chips and microprocessors and all kinds of stuff. And he ran that whole facility, and they ended up moving it overseas. And I
Yeah,
know one of the things that you talk about is bringing, like, we want to
reshoring.
bring
Right,
that back,
right.
because I mean, again, it creates jobs here in the United States. And, have you seen, like, we're starting to see a lot of that where
Yes,
things are starting to
yes.
move back into the
Yeah,
States?
yeah. I have seen it, and what I will tell you is that manufacturing jobs pay better,
Hmm.
and manufacturing jobs have a multiplier effect. What I mean by that is that with every manufacturing job created, it creates 2 to 3 service sector jobs. And that's very powerful in this economy.
Right.
The new big, beautiful law is a substantial incentive to get companies to reshore because the tax advantages to locate here are far greater than they've ever been. So, for example, when you hear the president talk about even the large companies who are foreign owned uh, building new plants here,
Hmm.
that's a big win for the US for a few reasons. One is if product is made here, they'll employ manufacturing workers here. If they employ manufacturing workers here, they'll pay them well. Uh, that will have a magnifier effect in other jobs that will get created. Now, not all those plants come online immediately, but I will tell you that 2 to 3 years from now, we'll see a fairly substantial explosion in manufacturing worker growth, and I think that'll be great for the economy.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree with you. And like I said, I saw firsthand what happened when they moved it, and
Yep,
this was a while ago.
yep,
And what I saw it firsthand with my dad getting laid off, and
yeah,
then
yeah,
it was, now they're bringing everything back, and even my husband's in the tech industry, and
yeah,
they had outsourced everything overseas, and now they're bringing that back. So it is going to create more jobs, and it is going to continue to fuel the economy, which is important.
yeah.
Yeah,
And we've had, as we've seen through COVID, there were supply shocks, uh,
absolutely.
and the supply shocks were real, and they were real because supply chains, first of all, they're not digitized. They're not as efficient as we might think they are. The supply chain firms have made more investments in technology, but the point is, you want to have supply chains that if they're not onshore, they're near your shore,
Hmm.
because it makes it far more efficient. That minimizes and mitigates the risk around supply shocks, and it makes perfect sense to do that. And we want to avoid supply shocks. So
No, absolutely. I have a client, during COVID, they make electric bikes,
yeah,
and a lot of their parts came from China.
yeah,
And I'll tell you what, it almost completely destroyed the
yeah.
business because they couldn't get parts. Because when they finally got them sent, they sat in the harbor. They sat
Right.
out on a boat and could not get them released. And then you had
Yeah.
to get all through customs, and it just created such a problem. So
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm fully on board with reshoring. It is absolutely the right thing to do, strategy wise, for the economy.
yeah, absolutely. All right, we're going to shift gears a little bit. we're going to talk about your book.
Great.
Yes, we're going to talk about your book. So it is out there. It is an it's a number one Amazon bestseller. Am I correct?
Yeah, in 3 or 4 categories. And I'm absolutely excited about that because when I was planning the book about a year and a half ago, I was looking for something that could change the game in the economy over the long term.
Mm,
And after doing more research, it just confirmed my belief that small business was the place to focus on and write about.
yeah.
And I'm just so excited that I did. And if I had to write it all over again, I'd write it about small business.
Yeah. No, I mean, I have some questions to ask you about as it relates to some of the frameworks that you have in your book. But again, I mean, I grew up in Allentown. Billy
Uh-huh.
Joel made Allentown famous.
Uh-huh.
But I also saw what happened when the steel closed. And then I mean, the community you talked about with small businesses, they're infused into the community, which is so true
Sure.
because when the steel closed and they were
Yeah.
starting to close everything
Yeah.
down, the community went downhill. And then they
Yep.
decided to, I don't know if you've ever been there, but it's quite extraordinary because they've turned it into like museums and then there's businesses there
Yeah.
and you can actually walk up into the steel stacks, which is
Sure.
like phenomenal. So if you ever, just total sidebar, but yeah, if you ever get there,
Understood.
it's amazing to see. So the first thing I wanted to ask you about is, especially right now, businesses with all that we've navigated with uncertainty and all of
Mhm.
the challenges, since COVID, and now with everything that's going
Yes.
on in Iran, you talk about alignment versus disruption.
Hmm.
And you talk about that a lot of people, and I've seen this, a lot of founders want to keep pivoting because they're just reacting to any
Right.
circumstance that's happening. But you say no, we need to actually focus on alignment. So tell me a little bit more about that and why it's important.
So I think what's especially important for small business owners nowadays is, first of all, you've got to align with your marketplace. You've got to know what it is and know what it looks like upstream and downstream. You've got to stay focused on that and execute against that. The other thing I would say from a small business perspective is that everything I learned in my book interviews is that these small business leaders are absolutely aligned with their marketplaces, and they have what I would call uh, a high level and sophisticated view of where the marketplace is going,
Mm,
and they stay connected to that. They stay aligned with that. They have what I would call an outside in focus, that it's easy for business owners to say, I need to focus on the business. I need to focus on the business. But in my experience in talking to these business owners, what I learned is that they see the marketplace from the customer and they
mm,
align with the customer. And that's critically important. And I saw that in actually my 2 books that I've written now. It's
yeah.
about alignment with the customer. It's outside in, not inside out. Outside in is that you're going into the marketplace and you're looking, asking questions and understanding what the challenges are of your marketplace, and you're building solutions for them, right? You're literally fully upstream, and then in doing so, you're aligned. And if you're aligned, your chances of longevity and durability are far greater than if you were inside out. Because inside out, what happens is that you're focused more on the internal operations of the company, and that's not where the client or customer opportunities are going to come from. If you're aligned with the customer and you're with the customer and literally sitting around their side of the desk, looking out at their challenges, you will design products and services that will help them be successful. Ultimately, as an aligned business owner, your success is tied to the business,
Mm,
to the success of the customer's business. The more successful they are, the more successful you will be. It's
sure.
just that, right? So, and when people ask me, they just say, Dan, how have you been in business for 14 years as a small business owner? Well, I am fully invested in my client's success. The only way I measure success is not in dollars and cents. It's in how successful they are. And I build solutions to where they are, not to where I am. You can never be either as smart as or smarter than your client. They will tell you what their challenges are and what solutions they are. And if you do an effective job of asking questions and building trusting relationships, you're going to be in business for the long term.
Well, and I want to tell you something that you touched on. When you're so focused on working in your business, a
Yeah,
lot of times founders
yeah,
can't see past that to have those conversations with their customers, to
yeah,
have their conversations with, so that they can
yeah.
understand, what is it that they're needing? What's
Right.
happening? Like, how can
Yeah,
how can they help them be more successful? And I think that's a big piece to this, where it's really having that time, surrounding yourself with a good team, and understanding, having those conversations, basically. Yeah.
yeah. It's so for me, it's I have a CEO group of trade association CEOs.
Mm.
We meet 3 times a year, and I connect with them during the year, whether it be on Zoom meetings or we go out and have coffee, breakfast, or lunch, or phone calls. And I learn a lot from them. I learn a lot from them, like what's going on in their universe. And then when I go out, I speak at conferences, I go out and I'm listening to their members, what's new and different in their universe. Because again, that's outside in. And I love the outside in focus.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I agree with you. I have a different way of looking at it, but
Okay.
I agree with you. I mean, so you can't make a decision in a vacuum. Like, you
Yeah,
can't make it
that's
just
right.
because of what you think. You absolutely have to have those external conversations. That's how you get valuable insights that you may not have seen. And I think, again, making sure that you're taking time and you're not just listening to all of the fear that's,
Right,
being
right,
spread out there,
right.
so that you can make better decisions. Totally. So, um, okay, I want to ask about your 5 building blocks. You
Okay.
talk about your 5 building blocks, to help organizations move from vision to results.
My 5 building blocks, meaning my consulting methodology.
Yeah, your five building blocks that you mentioned. Yeah.
So, so for me, it's always all about research,
Mm.
right? And here's what I mean by that. So, building block one is qualitatively and directionally, where are they, right? And then quantitatively, survey wise, uh, where do they want to go? What are their awake at night challenges? What business outcomes do they want to achieve? And how aligned are they with their marketplace? And we've done so many of these surveys now that we are literally developing aggregate alignment scores for our customers. So the first 2 building blocks are all about research.
Mm.
I think another important building block, as I see them, is really all about building strategies from the outside in. This may sound crazy, but building strategies from the outside in means that you understand where your client wants to go and that their strategic plan and their value imperative will be a reflection of their marketplace. So much so that executives within companies will be compelled to engage because they're going to say, they're doing what we're doing, right? They're us, we're them. There
Right.
isn't any light between us. And that is that would be the third leg of the stool. So the fourth leg for me is always about the value imperative. Uh, a 1980s term is, oh, we need a strong value proposition. Oh my God, what is that? It, we want to build a value imperative with our clients so that their members, their member executives will be compelled to engage in that organization. That so much so that they're going to say the time and the money is worth it because the value they are delivering has a lot to do with creating a better business environment that's going to help our company be even more successful.
Mm.
And I think from my perspective, the fifth building block is it's about strategic partnerships, right? And I'm going to talk about ecosystems.
Yep.
And what I mean by that is that nowadays, what I've learned is that every industry is under what I call regulatory assault. And what I mean by that is that there are new regulations coming out all the time. These regulations cost money, they take time, they eat into operating margins and profit margins, and they cause companies over time to just erode and be less competitive. And one of the things that we've done, and I learned this in writing my first book, is the importance of building an ecosystem of relationships and strategic partnerships that are both upstream and downstream. So much so that you have a map of who all these other organizations or companies in this ecosystem are, and that you've bought into an important concept. That concept is that whatever impacts one of us impacts all of us. So if anything ever arises, we're all in and we're all going to try and drive that outcome. And I just wrote an article for my company blog yesterday about how trade associations, for example, are transitioning from that traditional government relations policy model to an ecosystem model. And that model is driven largely by reality. That reality is that industry leaders must have trade associations that have the capacity to move the needle at any given time. The world is so dynamic, as we see. There's supply shocks, there's energy shocks, there's all kinds of things happening, and trade associations need to be dynamic leaders and conveners that can move the needle for their members.
Yeah. Rising tides lift all boats, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Or it could be like the African term Ubuntu, which is it's if each one of us, if
Yes.
collectively we're successful, each one of
Yes.
us is successful. So
Yes.
yes,
Oh my
yeah,
God. Yeah. I mean, it's sort of
we go together, we rise together.
it's kind of so in the CEO group that I created almost 6 years ago, the culture and the environment that I work hard to maintain is that we're all there for one another. We're absolutely all there for one another. And that if somebody needs help, I tell people when they come in, I'm not going to charge you anything, but here's the expectation that if somebody calls you, you're going to help them.
Yeah.
Or if somebody calls me and says, I need help, do you know anybody? I'm going to send them your way. And the expectation is you're going to help them, because we do rise or fall together. And we have to be a community that's inextricably linked to one another, that
Yeah.
we're there to lift one another up when necessary.
Yeah. So what do you think, like, in with your book and everything, and the different frameworks that you have in there with what's happening? And I'll tell you what, everybody's got to get this book. I mean, I just started it, and like everybody's got to get this book because it's amazing. And so what do you think is like the most important thing that people need to focus on right now, with everything that's happening in the world, in the government, and based on what you wrote in the book, what is like the one, and maybe it's not just one, but what's the first thing that they should focus on now to kind of to just navigate what's happening, keep their business running, and keep their people employed?
Solidify your relationships internally and externally.
Gotcha.
And
That's the ecosystem.
that's the echo. So, it's for me, here's something you'll find interesting. Do you know in 14 years, the busiest year I ever had was when COVID launched? It's actually the busiest 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
It was amazing. And in large part, the way I run my business is that connectivity and keeping that focus of I'm here to serve, right? I'm here to serve. So for small business owners, it's easy for them because they see themselves as servants of their own communities. And if they stay close to their employees, if they stay close to their customers, if they stay close to their vendors, they will be able to maintain what are turbulent times. We will always have turbulence. There will always be some global disruption somewhere. but the things that give us longevity are the relationships and the ecosystem. That would
Yeah.
be the biggest thing I would say. I think that in the short term, we're seeing energy prices spike. We're seeing wholesale prices spike,
Hmm.
but I see it as an energy supply shock. I don't see it as anything more than that. And I think historically, what I've learned in my research is that when this Iran conflict is over, that energy prices will fall precipitously. So in the meantime, we've got to do is maintain our relationships and figure out uh, better ways to get things done as we navigate our way through these challenges.
Yeah. Um, you like you keep answering questions that I haven't asked yet, but it's all good. It's all good. And I know that I know the whole situation in Iran is like, I mean, that is on everyone's mind. And we see the price at the pump going up. Like I
Yeah,
said, I work with a lot of restaurants,
yeah,
and food costs are starting to rise again, which can be,
yeah.
extremely challenging for a small
Yeah,
business. That's
and we saw that in the producer price numbers yesterday.
yeah.
They're up like 5 to 6%. So essentially, to break it down in just a few seconds, what happened is we had uh, services inflation, right, around insurance and medical costs, and then when the energy shock hit, that impacted a slew of costs.
Yeah.
Energy, gasoline flows through our entire economy. So that's why you saw the sudden rise in prices. The reason why there was a buildup in prices up until the Iran war is that there was anticipation that was going to happen. And that's why you started to see prices creep up in the prior 60 to 90 days. But again, it all leads me to believe, based on history, that when the situation resolves, meaning the war ends, that prices will come down. And I'm encouraging people to be vigilant, but to maintain their patience.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know it's like I said, and it's like we've been dealing with this for
Right.
several years,
Right.
So
Yeah,
I
this
know
is
it's a big
the Iran situation we've been dealing with since 1979.
yeah.
And unfortunately, they have been investing in weaponry and enriching, uh, plutonium and uranium, and getting ready to, potentially hold the whole Middle East hostage. And in doing that, 20% of the world's oil would have been held hostage, and it would not have been pretty. It would not
Yeah.
have been pretty.
Yeah. Yeah, it's I remember that was when like gas prices were just like way back when. That was when gas prices were like out of like control, and people were waiting in these long lines to get
19,
gas
yeah, it was
and
in the 1970s. Yeah, I
yeah.
remember it. It was scary. You could only go to the gas station. If you're an odd or an even, you can only go on certain days. My father was a family physician,
Yep.
and he had to go to the gas station and say, "Look, I hear you." That was the day back in the day when doctors actually went out and made house calls. They said,
Mhm.
"Do you want me to not go and see someone?" So it was a very challenging time. The good news is what's different 40, 50 years later is that our onshore supply of oil is second to none. We are a net energy exporter, which is a big change in the last 10 years. And that's good news for us. So we're not going to have long lines anytime soon.
Yeah. I hope not, because I'm not going to sit it. I'm just
I
gonna.
hear you. I
We're going to
understand.
invest in the teleporter.
Yeah.
That's what Star Trek. Here we come. Um, so, question, question for you: what was your favorite part about writing this book? Because you have your other book,
Yeah.
and then you have this one. What was your favorite? Because you wrote this one slightly different.
Yeah, I did. Here's what I am. So when people say, then tell us what you think you do best. So I start with the assumption that the Lord blessed us with two ears and one mouth for a reason,
Mm,
meaning that we listen more than we talk. And I am a student more than anything. And the best part of this was listening to 35 small business owners and understanding what their challenges were and what they needed as long-term solutions. It was just an unbelievable experience for me. And it was just, I learned a lot. And that was the best part of it for me. I very much enjoyed the writing part, but I absolutely enjoyed the interviews.
Yeah. No, I wrote my book. They're my stories, but
Yeah,
I also had stories of conversations that I had with people,
sure.
and I'll tell you, like that is my grandfather used to say, Teresa, you ask too many questions. Well, I ask questions because I love hearing people's stories. I mean, you
Yeah,
build so much connection. Talk about an ecosystem. I mean, you build
yeah.
connection. You really get to understand someone, and people feel
Mhm.
seen. And I know that that is something that you talk about a lot is the importance of your people in your business
Yeah,
over anything else.
yeah. There is nothing more important. I was meeting with someone who's a publisher and writes about trade association CEOs. And
Mm.
the publisher said to me, "Do you think you could give me a list of people that you think I should be talking to?" And I said, "I'm a thinker. Give me a few days." And I sent her a list, and she was just thrilled. And a few of the people wrote to me and said, "My God, that was so kind of you." And I just said, "Kind? Uh, I there's nothing greater for me than recognizing other people and the value they bring to the overall community and their communities. And
Mm,
it may it makes a difference for them, but I enjoy spreading other people's good news.
yeah. No, I love that. And in a time when, trusted as is
Yeah,
at an all-time low.
yeah,
And, I was going to ask you, people, especially small businesses, you have these big corporations that can pay
yep,
higher salaries
yep.
and potentially give, bigger benefits. What is the advice that you give people in, attracting really good talent? And not just attracting them, but then retaining them, based on your belief about people being so important in a business.
So I think uh, strategic partnerships happen not only with customers and with vendors, but they happen with your employees.
Yeah.
There's got to be shared goals and shared outcomes. It's how can I help you be successful, and how can I help make you successful, and continually investing in that relationship. I think that's one thing that I would say. The other thing that I would say from a policy perspective is uh, that the Congress needs to pass legislation around association health plans. What
Mm,
that does is it allows small businesses to pool together uh, and get better insurance rates. The second thing is that uh, we need competition in the health insurance marketplace. What I mean by that is that there ought to be able to be competition across state lines. So if you lower the cost of health insurance for small businesses, uh, they'll be able to attract and keep employees because of those small business, because of the health insurance and 401ks that they'll be able to offer. I mean, that will make them as competitive as the large companies. I think that is not a nice to do. That is a must do.
yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I run into this conversation a lot with my clients. They're
Yep.
like, Teresa, like we just can't, everybody
Yep.
struggles like trying to
Yeah.
hire good people. And they're like, we
Yep.
just can't compete. And I'm like, well, you need to think about it a different way. You
Right.
know, you need to think about how you're structuring your comp plan, how you're structuring, you can offer perks that the bigger businesses necessarily can't offer, but it's just it's
Yeah.
rethinking. It's rethinking it.
Yeah. I encourage business owners everywhere to rethink everything.
Yeah.
And what's been fun for me is how I have rethought everything. And I'm continually challenging myself. And sometimes I'll fall in a rut in my own status quo and just say, well, why are you still doing it that way? I think that we live in a day and time that it's always appropriate to reassess, reevaluate, and challenge your thinking because things are things are changing too fast. Technology is making things happen quicker, and
Mhm.
we have to be steps ahead. And we do that by challenging ourselves, by challenging our own status quo. I mean,
Yeah.
I promise you, I do that every day, and it's
We have
fun.
to. We have
It's
to.
fun.
I was listening to something, they were talking about neuroplasticity. It seems to be like the
Wow.
buzzword right now,
Wow, it's a new thing. Yeah,
neuroplasticity.
yeah,
And they were saying that it used to be that you stopped learning new things at age 22. And then
right.
now neurologists are saying, no, like that you can actually continue to learn new things. You have to force yourself
Yes.
to look at things differently. You have to
Yep.
force yourself to think about things differently. You have to move differently. I mean, even like in exercise and stuff, move differently. And when you're thinking and moving at the same time, that
Yep.
expands it. So it's
Yep.
like super, yeah, super. And that's what's going to create growth all over the place.
Absolutely.
Thinking about things differently, looking at things differently.
Yes.
Um, Adding a little bit of like the whole energy thing in here.
Yeah. Without a doubt. Yes. Yes.
Yeah, yeah. So what's next for you?
Great question. So here's what's next for me. I am doing a good bit of speaking. I am still writing op-ed articles and doing quite a bit in the media. I get called on pretty often
I
uh,
know I see you.
to give my take uh, on the economy, where things are going, what it means, both short term and long term. So I think it's all three of those things. It's and the fourth thing is the client work. And I think that I'm not having a day that I'm wondering what I need to do.
Mm,
It's usually pretty full, and sometimes I get surprises of things that I need to do or new opportunities that come in. But I will tell you, I do enjoy the opportunity to get in front of small business owners and talk with them, talk with them about the book. I'm doing other podcast interviews like this one. I was on a few weeks ago with the American Small Business Network, which was absolutely energizing. And so it's,
I'm energizing, right?
yeah, absolutely.
Come on.
Without a doubt. I wouldn't be here otherwise if you weren't.
I'm teasing. I'm
Yeah.
teasing.
So from my perspective, I mean, I think that it's uh, continuing to spread the message of small business, uh, continuing to get the word out on the economy, and continuing to engage in my business and my CEO group. And I will tell you that I'm energized to have fun every day,
Mm,
primarily because I love people and because I love to help people. To me, again, I just thrive when I can help other people be successful.
yeah,
It
and you
just
do it
makes it
so
it makes
well.
a difference in how I think, how I feel. Who did I help be successful today? I mean, it's a wonderful experience.
Yeah. No, I love that. And I mean, again, you are the one of the most kind, empathetic, like just amazing individuals. And I mean, it's rare that you meet people, unfortunately. And I'm one of those people that sees the good in everyone.
Yeah.
But you just make people feel so comfortable
Mm,
and seen,
yeah.
like just seen, you
Yeah.
know?
It,
Um,
everybody matters.
yeah, yeah.
Everybody matters.
No, it's true. And you have a story, if you don't mind me asking, you have a story about Winston Churchill and
Yes. I
and your
don't mind your
sister.
asking. It's interesting for me. So many of us in our lives have had bad experiences. I lost my sister and my brother in a car accident when I was 15, and then my dad within 3 years after that, who was not in the car. And my sister Andy gave me a Winston Churchill book several months before she died. And it was a book of Winston Churchill quotes, and it was called Never Give In. Uh, and one of my favorite quotes was about the courage to continue.
Mm,
And several years ago, my wife and I were at a movie theater and we were watching this movie about Winston Churchill. And the end of the movie, showing credits and the Winston Churchill quote, and I had tears running down my face. And my wife says, "What's going on?" And I said, "My sister gave me this book several months before she died." And what I realized then, this is like 7 or 8 years ago, is that Andy has been with me since she died in June of 1972, giving me that courage to to endure, to persist, to continue. And I dedicated this book, Rethinking Economic Growth, to her
Yeah.
for that reason, because she's with me every day in my thoughts. She was smart. She was beautiful. She wanted to be a school teacher. She was artistic. She wrote poetry. She was fun to be with. She was funny. And had she lived, we probably would have been best friends. And the way that I honor her, which I do every day, is I help professional women be successful. So more than half my CEO group are women. I typically take on women CEO clients, and it's my mission to help them be successful. When I recognize other professional women, I'm doing these things to honor Andy, and it means the world to me.
I love that. I love that. The first time when you and I chatted and you told me the story about your sister, and I mean, it was just like, it just hits you,
Yeah,
you
it does.
know,
It does.
and she absolutely is with you,
Yes.
always. Okay. Thank you for hanging with us today. Just one quick question. What are you most grateful for?
Gosh, I am grateful for my princess. My princess is my wife of 46 years. We met 47 years last month here in Washington, D.C. And I call her the light and love of my life because she is my guiding light, and she is the one person I can always count on to be honest with me.
I love that. I love that. Well, thank you. I'm sorry to keep you, but this conversation was just so good. But thank you for joining us. Everyone, just really fast, how can people find you?
They can find me at danielvarroney.com, and they can find Rethinking Economic Growth at amazon.com.
Wonderful. Wonderful. All right, everyone. Have a great rest of your day. And thank you so much, Dan.
Thank you.